Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Tuesday, July 21st. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Ball State game in 46 days, the game against Michigan in 130 days. Our friends at Jeff Ruby's Columbus are proudly offering nationally acclaimed USDA prime steaks, seafood and sushi, impeccable service, live entertainment, and an attention to detail that is simply unmatched. Today would be a great day to go to jeffruby.com/Columbus, check out the menu, and make a reservation today. All right, on today's show, we are continuing our countdown of the 40 players that are likely to make the biggest impact for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Today, we're talking about 15 through 11. So it is starting to get real. And when it starts to get real, we call in Tony Gerdeman of BuckeyeInsiders.com to talk about it. Tony, number 15 on my list here, I have linebacker Peyton Pierce.
Wow. It's interesting because initially it seems low, like the Ohio State starting middle linebacker should be higher on the list. But again, this is both sides of the ball and perhaps the special teams. And so, but as we've talked about before, they've had a first team all Big Ten middle linebacker every year since 2021 or 2022. And so if Peyton Pierce is that, does that make him higher? But there are still some names that we have not mentioned, and there are some good players on offense, and there's a quarterback, and there's a wide receiver that we'll eventually get to. So I don't know. Off the cuff, this seems a little low, but if I were to look at the names, I'd be like, oh, okay. Yeah. Without some level of outplaying or some expectations that we know of, there's some proof of concept, I guess I can accept this.
Yeah, and this is not me saying, well, I'm not sure he's going to be a starter. Like, I think he's going to be a starter. I think there's a lot of guys who are above that in terms of pass rush. You saw how disruptive pass rush can be in games towards the end of last season for Ohio State. And so you've got some pass rushers that we still have to get to. And you've got some secondary guys where you've seen how impactful some of those corners can be. So we got some of those guys still to come. And, there are guys on the offensive side of the ball who are not too bad as well. So yeah, I don't know that there's anyone above this that I think you're going to look at and go, oh, he should definitely be way behind Peyton Pierce. No shade to Peyton Pierce, 15th on this list. That puts him in the top half of Ohio State starters. So that's not a bad thing. So, all right, number 14. This is a guy who I put on the list, and then I just kind of kept moving it up. And I'm going to say his name out loud right now, Quay Russaw. Okay, there I've said Quay Russaw's name out loud, so I'm going to stop moving up the list now. He's number 14, but man, I had him somewhere in the kind of like mid-20s at some point, and then in the middle of one of the shows, I'm like, we can't talk about him yet. We got to move him up. I think he's going to be a bigger deal. And then I moved him up again in the middle of last show. You were like laughing because you saw me doing something at one point, like, I'm going to change this list right now. I moved him up again. I've got him 14th now. Is that low?
I think you are calling your shot on Quay Russaw. You've been doing that for a while, and you're out there. I'm not saying you're out there. It's like you are saying, someone putting him 14 tells us your expectations of him. And there were times in the spring and in the winter we heard really good things about him. So it's like, well, that makes sense. I think this is a little aggressive, but again, if you're right, then you can point at everybody and laugh. Don't point at me and laugh. It's still too painful. But I'm certainly going to be interested to watch this, because if he is this high, I think that's a really, really good thing for Ohio State, because it means that they're like the possibilities, the potential has hit.
Yeah, it feels like there is stuff that he can do that maybe they don't have anyone else on this team that can really do, to be that just like true total edge rusher guy. I'm very high on, we did a Buckeye Weekly where we were talking about the defensive end position and questions about the defensive end position. And I think a lot of those questions could be answered if Quay Russaw is what I think he could be this year. Will he be? Well, we'll talk about that all fall. Don't you worry. But it's certainly a guy that is going to be someone we're going to be talking about quite a bit. Number 13, let's go to the offensive side of the ball. Let's talk about Luke Montgomery. He was solid last year. I think everyone on the offensive line had their moments, not in a great way towards the end of the season, but he was really solid overall, I think. And you figure another year as a starter, he kind of took over late in the 2024 season, took a role late in that 2024 season, took over as a starter last year. I'm expecting some pretty big things potentially from him this year.
Yeah, senior returning starter, experienced, has been in the same place for a while now. That helps. Second team All-American last year by the Football Coaches Association, so that's no small thing. Second team All Big Ten. Scholar athlete all 3 of his years, so it's like all of these are aspects of a very, very good offensive lineman and a cornerstone of the line of scrimmage. So I think this is fine. I think he also has versatility. He's essentially played every spot now on the offensive line in his time in terms of practice or games, and also tight end. So he's a guy that's experienced, been around, and if he continues to increase that physicality, and sounds like the way Arthur Smith is going at offensive coordinator with getting that offensive line all on the same page, he could be in for a very big year.
Yeah, we still have a couple more offensive linemen to get to, but I think he is going to be one of those really, really important pieces in what should be a better and improved offense line for the Buckeyes. All right, number 12 and number 11, I'm going to do these together because these are two guys who play the same position, and I changed my mind 3 times on which guy was going to go 12 and which guy was going to go 11, and at this point I'm just going to sort of throw my hands up and say 11 and 11A, Devin Sanchez, Jermaine Mathews. I think I'm going to put Jermaine Mathews at 11 and Devin Sanchez 12 just because he's got another year of experience. But I also think a year from now, Devin Sanchez might be like a top 5 guy on this list.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the need for Jermaine Mathews is to be up here. Like Ohio State needs him to be high on this list, and he's very experienced. He's started games ever since he was a true freshman. Two games as a true freshman and maybe a couple as a sophomore before emerging as the starter last year, replacing Denzel Burke. So that experience, that energy, that tenacity, he needs to be up on this list. Devin Sanchez, I can't shake the spring that he had, and it was outstanding. And all of the battles that we saw with Jeremiah Smith, and I'm telling you, he won more than he lost against Jeremiah Smith. And maybe that's because of Ohio State doesn't have a good quarterback. Who knows? But like those two went at it, and Devin Sanchez walked away most of the time either with a seatbelt thing or, shaking his arms incomplete like that. So those two guys, I think Ohio State could have, certainly they arguably have the best cornerback duo in the nation once the season is over. It's a little too early to say that now, but I think by the end of the season, people will be saying it.
Yeah, I think that's entirely within the realm of possibility. Certainly, potentially the best Big Ten cornerback duo. And then, we talked about Dominic Kelly a few shows ago, but he's someone who, if he can get himself to even just being a top 20 kind of guy on this list instead of, I think I had him 30th or something like that, I think this could be a really, really, really good defensive backfield. And we've got a couple guys in that defensive backfield that we have not even talked about yet. Plus that quarterback who Tony doesn't care much for, apparently.
It's like we started the show by saying, you have Peyton Pierce this low? And then now it's like, how are you going to cram all these players in here in this top 10?
Yeah, it is. Too many good players is a very Ohio State problem. We have on the next show, we'll have a couple offensive linemen, a defensive lineman, a secondary player, a running back, and then we'll have the top 5 after that. So we'll get to that at some point later on in this week, but there's a whole bunch coming up this week at BuckeyeInsiders.com. We have coverage of basketball coming up on Tuesday. We'll be back at practice, watch Jake Diebler's Buckeyes, and get a chance to talk to a couple of their transfer additions as well. A couple guys we haven't talked about a lot, but people who could play a pretty big role this upcoming season. So we'll have coverage of that for you coming up on Tuesday at BuckeyeInsiders.com. And of course, we'll have coverage of lots of football stuff for you at BuckeyeInsiders.com as well. Wouldn't this be a great time for you to join BuckeyeInsiders.com? In fact, it would. We would love to see you there on our Insiders board presented by Jeff Ruby's Columbus. We've had some very, very fun and active conversations already. You want to talk about the Michigan thing? Oh, don't worry. There's a conversation about the Michigan thing there. You want to talk about the Reds or the Guardians or the Bengals or the Browns or the Blue Jackets? We got threads about all of those. We got all sorts of stuff there and a really, really fun and active community. Sign up now. You can get access to a bag of confetti from the national championship season. We're going to start doing some promotional giveaways of some Ohio State experiences and stuff like that coming up in the next few weeks. You are going to want to be a member there. So go ahead and sign up now. Again, if you're not sure, try it for a month. It's $11.99. It doesn't cost less than the price of a lousy chain store pizza, as I have said upon occasion over the years. You get access to our whole team of insiders at BuckeyeInsiders.com. And thanks again to our friends at Jeff Ruby's Columbus, the award-winning upscale steakhouse in downtown Columbus, named one of the top 50 steakhouses in America by Food Network. Just go to jeffruby.com/Columbus to check out the menu and make a reservation today. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.